Thank you. That the Torah says, thou shalt not cook a kid goat in its mother's milk. The Torah only forbids in a way of cooking, a form of cooking. The meat and the milk will cook together. Somebody just simply, let's say, pickled, they let them sit together. I feel a kamiyama for many days. Certainly there'll be an absorption of the milk into the meat. Tam will taste the meat going into the milk. There'll be an exchange of taste. As long as they were not cooked together, it's not forbidden from the Torah. Rabbinically, it is forbidden. We'll learn in a moment. But it's important that we classify in our minds whether it's a rabbinic prohibition or a Torah prohibition, because there are differences. You're not allowed to do both of them, but there still are differences. Rabbinically, we're not allowed to consume any meat that has a taste of milk or any milk that has a taste of meat. Any situation where you have milk. Page says Zion, 16. Anytime you have meat that falls into milk or milk falls into meat, instead of Yesh Lishal Shel Stock Master by Rav, because you may have a problem rabbinically. So Halacha Dalid summarizes these halachas in a nice neat bundle. Nimtzenu lemeidim she'nisa basam b'chol min ha'torah elim ki nispashal basam b'hem ha'torah and b'chol b'hem ha'torah. Bas b'chol min ha'torah is only usher if you cook meat from a kosher species animal with milk from a kosher species animal with rabbanon. Rabbinically, also gam basar oif tar basar chayav ha'torah and b'chol. Also, if you take, let's say, chicken or fowl, it's a kosher species, and you cook it in milk, or you take a kosher wild animal and cook it in milk. V'chein chalav chaya tahidim basar. Same would be milk from a kosher wild animal with meat. Ashalin is bashal basar b'chalav yachad, even though they were not cooked to one to one another, rather they were just absorbed like in a form of pickling. Okay, so just pickling them together would be a rabbinic prohibition. But in addition to that, the rabbis also said you're not allowed to cook chicken or meat from a kosher wild animal or non-kosher species meat with milk. So those are all the Rabbanan, because again, the Torah says, we're talking about kosher species meat and kosher species milk. Now, when we extrapolate and say, okay, we're not allowed to take fowl, chicken, and cook it with milk, or we're not allowed to take meat from a kosher wild animal or meat from a non-kosher species animal with milk, that's already rabbinic. Is that clear? Now, the next halacha gets into the human psychology of things. Let me introduce this halacha by telling a story. There was a Rav, I believe this is in the 1950s. He was a Rav in somewhere in New Jersey, and he wrote to the Rebbe and said, how is he supposed to inspire his constituents, his congregants? These are survivors of the Holocaust. How are they going to light the fire in them to excite them about Torah mitzvahs? So the Rebbe answered him with a story. So it's a story within a story. When people go to the spa, or they go to steam bath, or they go to get bankis, which was very popular many years ago. So the Rebbe says, if you go to a stranger on the street and you whip them, you hit them, they'll call the police on you. You'll have to deal with the authorities. It's a crime. On the other hand, there are people that pay money to go to a special place known as the spa, and there under certain conditions, they get hit. And they say, Machaya, Machaya. They love it. The Rebbe says, what's the difference? Here on the street, you hit somebody, you go to jail. But you have another place where people actually pay money to get hit. But whatever says depends on the street. It's just coming out of the blue. It's considered to be something inappropriate, and someone could file a claim. But when you go to the spa, people are looking and asking for it. It's under conditions where the people are warm, they're hot, they're ready to receive it. Whatever says the same thing over here. When it comes to your congregants, in order to inspire them, I'll tell you mitzvahs, talk to them about the Baba, the Seder, and what happened in the home, warm their hearts up till they feel ready. And then you give them a little clap, meaning then you tell them, hey, you got to do this, that, give them a little bit of fire under them. So it's all about the relationship, right? That's what it comes down to. And now we're going to learn about this when it comes to Basa B'Chala. What happens if you meet another girl on a park bench and you're eating a delicious, sumptuous, scrumptious pastrami sandwich from the amazing deli here on Kingston Avenue? I don't know if it is one. Fine girl. Yes. And then this other girl comes and sits down, is having a dairy smoothie, or she's having a dairy bowl. Are we concerned that the two of you might come to a weak moment and share food with each other? Well, the answer is as follows. If the girl sitting on the park bench with you is a stranger, she's coming from Beis Rachel in Williamsburg and you never met her before, we're not worried that you're going to offer her food, but she'll think you're a little bit, it's a little strange. I'm sorry. It's a little bit socially awkward to do that. On the other end, if it's a girl, even if you know her casually, you know her somewhat, you might say, oh, this is delicious. You want to try some of this? That's what gets into over here. When we're sitting down at a table, if we're eating the opposite kind of food, meaning one party is having meat, one party is having dairy, if the people know each other, there's a concern they might come to inadvertently share food and come to Bas B'Chala. And therefore, it's necessary to put down what's known as safeguards. Makes sense, yes? Halacha hey. Like goes with Chazal, the rabbis made a enactment. One should not eat meat together with milk. You're not even allowed to take meat and put it on the table if you're having cheese. Don't put them on the same table. Talking about a serving table. I'm sorry, we're talking about an eating table rather. Not to put cheese on a table you're having meat. Let's be mindful. Yeah. Even if they're on opposite ends of the table, this one's over here, this one's over there, it's still a problem. Even two individuals. They're not allowed to eat at the same table. This one's having meat over here, this is having dairy over here, and let's say they're even 10 feet apart from each other, opposite ends of the table. However, in Makidim Ze'azeh, they know each other, even if they're not BFFs, they just know each other. The Chazal were worried that that they might come to share food. It's interesting. He brings down here in the footnotes, if they're sitting so far apart from each other that it's impossible for one hand to reach the other hand, to be lenient. Yes.
Husband and wife would come down together and have like dinner or something, and they're having opposite food, they just what like in the middle to remind them.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. You're correct, 100%. That's what this halacha says. First, we're giving the buildup of the concern, and then we'll talk about the remedy. You're right. But if they don't know each other, this is a girl from Beis Rachel in Williamsburg. We're not afraid you're going to come to share food because say, the Lubavitchers, stay away from them. Even if you do know each other, you're allowed to eat at the same table. And also is a simon vekabinim. If you made some kind of a simon, and like you just mentioned, a simon, by the way, in halacha is something that should be at least an inch high. Something that's not ordinarily on the table. So, for example, this would be a simon. Or another way, simon would be each one's going to have their own placemat. You have a dairy placemat and a meat placemat, so there are different patterns. That's also considered a simon. Even though it's not an inch high, but it's something that's right over the plate, so it's prominent. If you don't normally eat that way, You put something in between that's not ordinarily on the table. Put a stapler, or you put a baseball bat, or a soccer ball, and this doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be that. But something that's not normally there. Something has a little bit of height, so it should be discernible. And it says like an inch high at least. In such a way, we're going to remember and we're going to be careful not to share food. Even having said that, they still should be careful not to drink from one cup, not eat from the same bread. Because the food is stuck to the actual drinking vessel, to your cup or your mug, whatever it is, or to the bread, and then you're going to have a cross-contamination issue. Even if someone's only eating chicken, which is the Rabbanan, because still they have to be cautious and careful about all these measures. Even though it's only Midrabanan, and normally we would say we don't make one enactment against another enactment, because the whole Basmachol itself is only Gezeda. It's Rabban. But still, in this case, we do say that it's necessary to put down a siman, even if you're just having chicken schnitzel from Holy Schnitzel. Okay. Or from a different place. Doesn't have to be that place. Yes, any questions so far? Okay, story time. In the 1980s, before probably most of you were born, I would imagine, there was this candidate for running for president, a Texas billionaire. His name was Ross Perot. Remember him when I was a kid. The hilarious guy. Nobody took him seriously. He would ramble on the campaign trail. Self-funded campaign, very wealthy fellow. But he had a very small head and he had very big ears. So he would give his, say his piece, give his campaign speech. And then at the end he would say, if anyone has any questions, I'm all ears. Okay, halacha vav. Now, so we said you're not allowed to eat them together. What about one after the other? Is there a waiting time, or a requisite waiting period? There is that also. So we're taking away peeling away the layers here, yes? Eating dairy foods after having meat. Halacha vav. We now turn the page to page Ches. Not only this, that we're not allowed to have meat together with milk. We also made a further prohibition. You're not allowed to have dairy food. Even after eating meat, you're not allowed to have dairy. There's a waiting period that's requisite. You have to wait a certain period of time. And now we're going to bring down the Gemara that serves as the basis for the amount of time we're supposed to wait. With Masha'amah, the Gemara, it says the Gemara Kulin, yes? Okay. Basar, if someone eats basar, they eat meat. Also, lechol gvina, you're not allowed to have gvina, you're not allowed to have cheese right away. The Gemara explains, ki mar ukva or mar ukva. Kasher ochal basar b'surazu, when he had meat in this meal, lo yochol gvina, did not have gvina ad suda acheres, until he had another meal. Now the question is, the commentaries are grappling, how do we actually decipher this? How do we understand this? He didn't have it till he had another meal. The Rishonim grapple with is how do we define these words? Yes, Suda Acheres, another meal. And there's also a second machlekes, another machlekes, as to the reason why we wait between meat and having dairy. Commercial is part. Now, in Halacha Zayin, we're going to actually dissect this and go through all these details. Yesh mefarshim, there are those Rishonim including the Rambam, that learn, and the Rashba, the Rosh, that Suda Acheres is Hainu Shir Hazman Shebein Suda LeSuda. The amount of time that people would wait between one meal and the other. After eating a meal, you cannot have another meal because the system is full. You have to wait for a certain period of digestion. If somebody eats meat, do not eat dairy foods until the ordinary time passes, like they had in the times of Chazal, between the afternoon meal and the evening meal. And in those days, it was sheish shoish lemis. It was a complete 6 hours. That's how the Machaber passed. Yesha Cholkim, the other Rishonim that learned, they're more lenient about this. And what do they say? And Mefarshim, this is Tosis, that Kisud Acheres, another meal, Pirush Sha'asr Lachal Basa B'chol B'tich Sudachas Mamish, coming to teach us that you're not allowed to eat milk and meat in the same meal, even if you're waiting a long time and you don't bench. You're not allowed to. That's why it's this halach, by the way, it's true. It's relevant regarding the Shavuos. When we have a dairy meal, yes, before we have a meal, even if we wait an hour after the dairy before having the meat, we're not allowed to have the meat until we actually do what's known as siluk suda. We bench from the dairy meal and we begin a new meal. Opportunity to learn that halacha. Avlam gom halacha sudas babasar. But if you finish eating the meat meal, then according to this opinion, you're allowed to have the dairy right away. What's the halacha ma'chol biyah? The fishy tossum according to Tosfos, Allah v'barach b'samasi. You first have to bench. If you didn't have bread, then you make a bracha chreina. Let's say a bracha fashais, right? Whatever it is. So that's called what's known as siluk suda. The closing up that chapter. The meal is over. There's another halacha. I'll take the question in a moment. You also have to eat a kind of food to clean one's mouth between meat and milk, because there's remnants of meat stick in the teeth. Like bread, to clean one's mouth. To drink some kind of carb liquid, such as seltzer, or tea, whatever suits your palate. To rinse your mouth. And the Pasuk say, even according to places who's leaning, and says it does not have to be a full-blown 6 hours. Still, you have to wait at least 1 hour between eating meat and having dairy. That's the opinions. Now we'll learn about how we actually follow in Allah. Any questions so far?
So there's an idea that you're not to bench. Now you're going to literally right after. So how does that work? If you have to bench, say on Shavuos for the Tuesday, whatever day in the week, and then to go and have meat.
Well, excuse me. First of all, you have to wait an hour anyways, unless you waited an hour already. So I guess that's the answer, but I don't know a way around it other than that. I don't know how.
What about people that don't wait now? There's this idea that
Some people wait a half an hour. You're right. Some people wait less. Some people don't. Yes, that's true. I don't know. I never heard this concept before that you can't bench if you're going to eat later. But if that's true, then I guess we have to find out how much time that is. I don't have an answer for you. Sorry. Try to look into it if you want, but I don't know. I don't know the answer. Anyone else? Any questions? All right. Halacha ches. So now we're going to actually dissect. What do we actually do l'poel mamish? So the actual customs that we have between waiting for meat before having dairy. The Svardim they wait a full 6 hours. In the Ashkenazim took the shita of Tosfos that's enough to wait 1 hour. However, the minhag even by Ashkenaz is a minhag by most Ashkenazi communities, the minhag is to wait the 6 hours. By the way, there are some communities that have a minhag to wait less, like you'll have the Dutch Jews or the German Jews. Some of them wait only 1 hour, 3 hours. If they have such a minhag from generations, then they can follow that. But if you don't, you divert, you go after the masses, which is the 6 hour waiting period. A fascinating description here, a fascinating expression. The Pasuk say anybody who has the fragrance of Torah should wait the full 6 hours. I'll tell you a story about this in a moment from the Rebbe. Actually, a story from the Rebbe and also a story from the Chassidish Rebbe. Ulam yesh mekaymis Ashkenaz, there are places in Ashkenaz Shemaelim like Kibla Allah Tmim Exut. He never took upon this minig. Mamshichim minig of Vayisom Shemider Der Lam Tanakshal. They go continuing on with the minig of their forefathers to wait only 1 hour. Yesh Mamtina Sholosh, as they said, some wait 3 hours. The Dailam Bakaki came and hugged him. That's enough for them because that's their minig. Amram ben Ashkenaz Sheminig of Vayisom Lantim Sheishois and Ashkenaz. His minig is to wait 6 hours. Kalila loy l'shadnis. Pastor Shalom for him to change minhagi from his minig his parents get that to break open the boundary, right? If someone does so, they're doing that. They're violating the concept as do not forsake the Torah of your mother. The Torah of your mother refers to Torah Shabbat Peh. But since this is the custom, yes, doing so, not waiting 6 hours would be forsaking the Torah of your mother. Okay. Now, just a little story. The Rebbe said in the Sikha, the Rebbe said this expression, a Chassidish Yid is there will start Zex Shoy Shleimus. A Chassidish Yid is someone who waits the full 6 hours. I'll tell you another story. There was a Chassidish Rav who had eaten meat like 5.5 hours earlier. It was almost up to 6 hours. He was going to write a halachic response so that it's enough to wait almost 6 hours, not a full 6 hours. So he had a coffee there with milk that he was going to drink. Already after 5.5 hours. By the way, some Yidden do have that custom. It sounds like they follow that. The Babish, we don't follow that. Anyway, so this Rav was writing the Shuvah, and as he's writing the whole response, the stroke of his pen knocked over the coffee, and it soiled this whole Shuvah. So the Rav said it's a simon milamayl, it's a simon from Hashem. They should be writing this tshuva. We should wait the full 6 hours. But halachically, there are people that wait a little less. Yes. I think it sounds like I'm pretty sure. 5.5. In other words, into the 6th hour. More than. Yes, correct. But into the 6th hour. By the way, it's a fascinating Rambam. The Rambam Macholas Asuris. The Rambam. I believe it's the end of. I'm not sure if I'm correct, but I think at the end of the Zion, the Rambam writes a lashon v'kumei shows. It's like 6 hours. The word kumei indicates that it's not it could be a not fully 6 hours. So there are commentaries that discuss this. In actuality, most Jews have the custom to wait the full 6 hours. There are those that have a specific custom in their community, wait slightly less if that's the custom. That's the custom, but otherwise, we don't take it upon ourselves to be lenient. Any questions? Now we're going to get into the next discussion. What happens if you have a koil or a kvatim? You have someone who's has special dietary needs. You have a child. So children, when it comes to children, we'll mechanech them with shoys to train them to wait 6 hours before having dairy. First of all, when a child is very young, they don't even have a concept of time. When they want something, want it now. They don't understand that for 2-3 hours. 2-3 hours is the same as 10 hours. Yeah. So it could be very, very difficult for them to relate to this concept. So as they get, let's say 3 or 4, train them to wait an hour or 2 hours. By the time they're 6, some opinions say by this time they're 6. All opinions say by the time they're 8 or 9, they should be fully graduated to wait the full amount of time. Depending on how astute the child is, we should have them wait as much time as that fits to their level of their capacity, so to speak. But what happens if you have, for example, a pregnant woman who needs to eat meat because she needs, I don't know, iron. Making this up, a doctor. She needs the iron. Then she needs the milk because she needs the calcium. So to wait 6 hours would create a problem because she has to eat in smaller doses. I don't know. Making up a story, but it could happen. Yeah, so that's it. Such a woman would also have a din of a chayla. She would be in a special case of need. Let's look inside. Halacha test. There are situations where we'll be makel to wait only 1 hour. Derech Moshe, for example, Misha Cholak. Someone who's not well and has to have dairy. Now, if they're craving their ice cream, I don't think it's called a toilet exactly. But they have to have their dairy for calcium. If a woman is nursing, she has to have dairy also. They can wait 1 hour after benching, of course, and cleaning their teeth. They should clean their teeth would be, by the way, flossing and rinsing one's mouth in the bathroom, like with mouthwash, accomplishes exactly the same thing. But you can also eat something like the celery or carrots to clean your teeth, or an apple or something like that, and then also rinse your mouth. Then they can have dairy. A child up till 9 years old has to have dairy. They don't want anything else besides dairy. I've heard it said that some children can be a little picky, even some adults can be picky. The dialogue b'amtana shor, they can wait 1 hour. In kinuach was rinsing one's mouth. V'adocha, kinuach means cleaning, and adocha means rinsing. Tinek lumata megil shalish, a child less than the age of 3. In tzorich la'amtin achan achilas possible. They don't have to wait any time after eating meat. Mutar la'achil echolav, they'll be allowed to have dairy afterwards. Afil b'teich shor, even within the first hour. If the need arises, we don't just do it cavalierly. But it's a need. Some say that once a child reaches the age of 3, already train them to wait an hour, if possible. Every year we add a little bit more. When they reach around the age of 6, they should already wait the full 6 hours. If possible. Now we're going to get into an interesting trivia question. What happens if somebody is within the 6 hours of eating meat and they have a dairy food in front of them? They have some ice cream, they forgot that they're fleishigs, and they make a bracha shahakol. What should they do? If they don't eat the dairy, so then it's going to be a bracha l'vatala. If they do eat the dairy, then they're messing up, they're not waiting the requisite time. Some say if already an hour has passed, to take a little bit of the dairy, in order that should not be a bracha l'vatala. Okay, yes.
I guess this is brought up so that the even died further, but also to speak on like the even other.
100% if it's in front of you, but if you know the shakal in front of you, then you have a problem. For sure. Yeah.
What if say, the shakal was said on milk, the only shakal for the near you is something that is food and not liquid. Are you then able to substitute? If in mind you only said it to liquid, not action.
I think so. If it's in front of you, it's considered to also be a possibility.
You have to walk like off the way.
I'll have to go get it.
Because the house is in, instead of like the street, food. For a liquid,
Interesting question. I need to pause for a moment to think about that. If a person was hungry, I think for sure would count, because there's still a desire to eat. If a person wasn't hungry, was only thirsty or something, then I think it's more of a problem. Eventually. The bracha shahakal goes on both foods.
That is shakal on a cup of water.
You'll let it, you can then have a shahakal food. You have to make another bracha? Why is that?
Does the bracha only apply to liquid? Apply to solid?
We get back to you after class. Remind me, and I'll get back to you about this thing. About both things. Remind me about both questions. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Oh. Okay. Allah Yud gets into the reasons why we wait 6 hours. The is between Rashi and the Rambam. The Omo Nechluko Aposkim Gam Betam Isur Achilas Lachol Lechol Achabasa. The reason for the Isur of eating dairy after meat. Yesh Mefarshim, there are those that say Shum Mishum Shabasa Meitzi Shuman. So the meat gives off a fatty aftertaste in the system. Venisha Tama Basa B'Tech the taste of meat remains in one's mouth ad gemar sheishos until 6 hours have lapsed. If someone's going to drink milk within the 6 hours, the gemar achilas habasar, from the time he or she finished eating the meat, is audit tama basar makol. The taste of the milk will get mixed into the aftertaste of the meat that's still in one's system. That's the opinion of Rashi, and that same Gemara. Yeshak Kim, those that differ, this is the opinion of the Rambam. But Farshim should say, is the reason for waiting the 6 hours because there's remains meat between one's teeth after eating the meat. If you're going to drink milk after eating meat, the milk will then gets mixed up with the meat. After 6 hours, you're allowed to drink milk. According to Rashi's opinion, which refers to the taste of meat that's in one's system, the aftertaste of the meat is already it's not there anymore. It left. According to the second opinion, we don't have to be concerned about a piece of meat between one's teeth. It's already been digested. The part we do clean our teeth anyways. But Allah Yid Aleph gets into what's known as an afkamina between Amen. We have an interesting cloud. Whenever you have two opinions, there's always a follow-up question that comes right afterwards. So what's the nafkamina? Give me an example where there'll be a case where according to one opinion it could be problematic, according to the other it won't be problematic. In other words, how we actually express these opinions in a live example. That's what we're going to do now. Yud Aleph. Yesh nafkamina bin ben atamim lefi atam harisha in shumishum tam shuman abasa shenisha b'tech beves because they taste of meat that's in the mouth. Im layachos abasa. If you didn't actually eat meat, elalos latinik. Let's say someone just chewed up a piece of meat, didn't swallow it, and just spat it out. You can drink milk afterwards. According to Rashi, you wouldn't have any taste of meat in your mouth because you didn't actually swallow any meat. It didn't go into your digestive system. But according to the reason of the Rambam, also you're not allowed to drink milk now. Even if you just chewed up the meat for the child, because meat went in between your teeth. Another difference would be between these two reasons. If you find meat between your teeth after 6 hours, the feet are machine according to the Rambam, it's not considered to be meat anymore. It's considered to be already been digested. You'd be allowed to have dairy without removing those pieces of meat. However, according to Rashi's reason, you're not allowed to drink milk until you remove the piece of meat between your teeth, even though 6 hours have passed. Because according to Rashi's reason, we don't find a source that actual piece of meat between your teeth are considered to be digested after 6 hours. So therefore, we're machmal like both opinions. We do remove it before having dairy. Now, luckily, your base it gets into the we're machmal like both opinions. We're going to stop here. So if you can mark on your notes that we're up to halacha your base. I'm not taking the safer home with me, so I'm going to take a picture. I have my own bookmark. Actually, we have more time. It seems like that clock is a little bit fast. You know, let's go weiter. Sorry. Okay, let's go weiter then. Halacha your base. La halacha nifsak b'shulchan aruch, pasuk b'shulchan aruch, lahachmer b'shnei kishnei hatamad. We machmer like both opinions. The fikach yesh lochosh l'tam hasheni should be machmer like the second reason, which is that of Rashi. I'm the Rambam. I'm sorry. I feel loyachal as a boss. You didn't actually eat meat. You just chewed it for a child. You still have to wait 6 hours. That's based on the Rambam. Ulam and loylos. You didn't actually chew the meat. Elatom is a tafsha. Let's say someone goes like this, put some chicken soup on their tongue just to make sure it's salty, and then spits it out. Then you do not have to wait 6 hours because there's no meat between your teeth and there's no meat inside your digestive system because you just spat it out. But you, of course, have to rinse your mouth. Making machmirim also like the first reason, which is that of Rashi. If you find meat between your teeth after 6 hours, one would have to remove it. Or the nakis piv to clean one's mouth, idea chilas lechem, like eating bread, the kadema or the like. The gamlichitz piv idea shtias mashke, to rinse one's mouth for drinking a drink. Mutter azlish is cholov biyad, one would be allowed to have dairy right away. Without waiting further. So that after you wait 6 hours. Okay, we're stopping by halacha yud gimel. So this will conclude today's class. Have a good Shabbos.